So the evidence is very strong against Hunter Biden. There is very little evidence that links Hunter Biden with Joe Biden. Hunter Biden received a lot of money from Burisma, a Ukrainian oil and gas company, and Joe Biden fired a Ukrainian prosecutor named Shokin. The theory, I guess, is that the Burisma paid money to Hunter Biden so that Joe Biden would fire Shokin because Shokin was investigating Burisma. One, there is little to no evidence that Shokin was investigating Burisma. Two, Shokin was targeted by the European Union as well as our State Department to be fired because he was more corrupt than the people he was investigating. And three, there is very little evidence to no evidence that suggests that Hunter Biden actually shared the money he got with Joe Biden so that Joe Biden would do something, or that Joe Biden knew that Hunter Biden was getting money so that Joe Biden would take these acts. That's what has to be investigated, and I'm all for the investigation, not an inquiry with the label of impeachment. But we have three committees right now, the Oversight Committee, the Judiciary Committee, and the Ways and Means Committee, that are investigating Hunter Biden's activities. And they're doing a great job. They're uncovering a lot of good information. They just haven't found that link yet with Joe Biden.
This is Republican Ken Buck completely dismantling the entire Republican impeachment effort against Joe Biden, pointing out one simple fact: they have zero evidence against Joe Biden. None. But he even goes further by explaining exactly how this entire web of lies is just a bunch of BS designed to deliberately confuse voters, even though the purveyors of that disinformation know there's no there there. And it's worth noting up top, Ken Buck is not some rhino moderate Republican. He is one of the most far-right members of Congress. He is literally a member of the House Freedom Caucus, a group that just recently voted to kick out Marjorie Taylor Greene because she was considered too moderate for them. So if this guy, a member of that group, is admitting that this impeachment inquiry is baseless, you know they have absolutely nothing. And these remarks from Buck are part of an extensive effort by him to condemn his party for this obvious partisan stunt that is solely designed to hurt Biden politically ahead of an election year. In an op-ed with the Washington Post, he called the impeachment inquiry a disgrace to the Constitution and a disservice to Americans. He then urged his fellow Republicans to focus on actual issues and policies, and said that impeaching Biden would only divide the country further and distract from the real problems facing Americans. Yeah, about that, perhaps Ken Buck doesn't realize it yet, but the party he is a part of has literally zero intention of actually improving people's everyday lives. Their sole goal is to confuse voters enough with spooky buzzwords like Hunter Biden and Ukrainian prosecutor so that people associate that corruption with Joe Biden, even though there is no actual evidence supporting that claim. It's like Hillary and emails all over again. Republicans also recently tried this when they trotted out a guy named Devin Archer, a former business partner of Hunter Biden, who the GOP spent weeks hyping up as their star witness. They swore up and down that Archer would provide damning evidence that Joe and Hunter Biden were involved in influence peddling schemes. Here's what happened when Archer finally came in to testify.
He did describe that there were approximately 20 occasions over the course of their nearly decade-long business relationship where, when one of them called the other, that Hunter Biden would ask his father to say hello to whomever he was at dinner. He said there were some times when it was friends and sometimes when it was potential business partners or business partners. But the witness was unequivocal and stated very clearly that they never discussed any business on that phone conversations. There were niceties, and there was a hello, and we talked about the weather or whatever it was, but it was never any business. And I think it's really important to remember that during this time period that we're talking about here, Beau Biden, Hunter Biden's brother and President Biden's son, became very ill with cancer and died. That was in the spring of 2015. And the witness described in vivid detail about how devastating that was to both Hunter Biden and to Joe Biden, and how their communications picked up dramatically in the aftermath, because Joe Biden was calling his son to check on him, and Hunter Biden was calling his dad to check on him. It had nothing to do with business, and that is the sum and substance of what the testimony was.
Yeah, don't you just hate it when your smoking gun witness forgets to actually deliver on the smoking gun? But hey, just for good measure, let's explain exactly why this whole Ukrainian prosecutor conspiracy theory is utter nonsense. Republicans claim that Biden forced Ukraine to fire a top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, back in 2015 to protect his son Hunter, who was on the board of a Ukrainian energy company called Burisma Holdings. This has been thoroughly debunked by a guy named John Solomon, who is a former Fox News contributor who was a key promoter of this theory. He recently published a document, which was a memo from the State Department for Biden's meeting with Ukrainian leaders during his visit to Ukraine in 2015. The memo shows that it was the official policy of the U.S. government and interagency communities to seek Shokin's removal because he was widely regarded as an obstacle to fighting corruption in Ukraine. The memo also states that anti-corruption reform should include an overhaul of the Prosecutor General's office, which Shokin headed. Not only that, Shokin had actually stalled the investigation into Burisma and was under the control of Burisma's owner. So not only was Joe Biden simply executing the policy of the U.S. government, his actions went actually against the interests of the company that Republicans are claiming that he was acting on behalf of. And this claim, which has been so thoroughly debunked for years now that it's absurd we're even talking about it, is essentially the entire underlying basis of what this inquiry is all about. All of which is to say, they literally have nothing. And the thing is, all of this is so obvious that it's starting to embarrass Republicans, and not just Ken Buck. Republican Representative Dave Joyce from Ohio told Forbes he's not seeing facts or evidence that would warrant an impeachment inquiry. Republican Representative Dusty Johnson from South Dakota told CNN there is a constitutional and legal test that you have to meet with evidence when it comes to impeachment, and that he has not seen that evidence. Republican Representative Don Bacon from Nebraska said, "I think before we move on to an impeachment inquiry, there should be a direct link to the president in some evidence. We should have some clear evidence of a high crime or misdemeanor, not just assuming there may be one. I think we need to have more concrete evidence to go down that path." Republican Representative French Hill from Arkansas told CBS that House Republicans have not even remotely completed their work on the kind of detailed investigations and quality work needed to proceed to an impeachment. So if you're wondering why McCarthy didn't bring this sham impeachment inquiry question to a full House vote, now you might be starting to see why, because he doesn't have the support even from his own party. So good on Ken Buck, of all people, for calling this out for what it is. The simple fact that a member of one of the most far-right MAGA caucuses in the entire U.S. Congress is exposing this sham just makes Kevin McCarthy look even more pathetic than he already did. This entire Republican strategy is craven, it is cynical, and it is desperate, but most of all, it's blatantly transparent. The simple fact is that Americans see Donald Trump for exactly who he is, a corrupt criminal under 4 indictments and 91 criminal charges, and so they're desperate to use innuendo and conspiracy theory nonsense to paint Biden the same way. The problem is, when you lie enough, eventually it comes back to bite you, and that's exactly what's happening here as even Republicans begin to revolt against their own party's lies and obfuscations. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.